be my anthem. Lord, when the world has fallen quiet, you stand beside me. Give me a song in the night, Jesus, I need you every moment. I need you. Hear now this grace-bought heart sing out your praise forever. Beauty for ashes. Find the weak and contrite heart, shoulder its burdens, carry it into the light. Jesus, I need you every moment. I need you. Hear now this grace-bought heart sing out your praise forever. Remember love, remember mercy. Christ before me, Christ behind me. Your loving kindness has never failed me. Christ before me, Christ behind me. Jesus, I need you every moment. I need you. Hear now this grace-bought heart sing out your praise forever. Jesus, I need you every moment. I need you. Hear now this grace-bought heart sing out your praise forever.
Hey, good morning, Brother Malcolm. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
All right. Good morning and happy Sabbath. Our theme verse for today is Philippians 4, verse 6 through 7, which tells us, "Don't worry about anything. Instead, Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. My name is Louis Jeter, and today we have several students, as well as a special guest that will help us sort through the topic of mental health. But first, I will ask each of our panelists to share their name, where they work or if they go to school, and favorite VeggieTale episode. So I will go first. Like I said, my name's Louis. I'm a senior at the University of Mary Washington, and I work as the IT help desk there. And my favorite VeggieTale episode is Larry Boy and the Fib from Outer Space. That's a goated show, 10 out of 10. And we would start with Mr. Jason.
All right. Hey, well, good morning, and my name is Jason Maloney. I am a retired Marine, and I am currently an investigator for the Department of Defense, and I investigate sexual assaults and whistleblower reprisal. And I'm glad we're doing VeggieTales because I truly love VeggieTales. And my favorite show would have been Esther with Mr. Nezer asking for a sandwich or saying Queenie Pooh. That's my guy.
Hi, my name is Alicia Charles, and I go to Germanna Community College. I work at Target. I just started, actually, and, and my favorite VeggieTales episode is Lord of the Fiends. I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, but the VeggieTales twist, and it's amazing. 10 out of 10.
Hello. Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Brenda. I'm currently at Germanna Community College. I'm studying business administration. I currently work at Lowe's. I also started as well. And my favorite VeggieTales is also Larry Boy when they talk about avoiding temptations. So.
My name is Malcolm Bernard. I went to Oakwood College, and then I studied counseling at Reformed Theological Seminary. I work for myself doing telehealth counseling, and my favorite VeggieTales episode is It's a Meaningful Life, which is like their take on It's a Wonderful Life. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Good morning, my name is Chloe. I work as an office coordinator in a physical therapist clinic in Stafford, and I don't have a particularly favorite VeggieTales episode.
Good morning, my name is Michelle, and I go to Germanna Community College, and I am studying nursing. I work at Walmart, and hands down the best VeggieTales movie, because I don't really like the shows, best movie is Jonah and the Whale. When they sing, our God is a God of second chances. Yeah, that's it.
So, Brother Malcolm, when we talk about, mental health, there's a lot of terms, right? There's a lot of terms that kind of confusing. Mental health, for example, or mental illness. Can you help us when it comes to these terms define some of the basic terms to get us on the same page? And also, from with your background, can you share some of the most common ways that we can experience these challenges to our mental health?
Sure. So mental health is it's basically just a part of your physical health, except it's the part of your physical health that concerns your psychological and your emotional well-being. And mental illness is kind of just the converse of that. It's essentially where you have some type of disorder. And you can think of disorder as something that gets in the way of your ability to function. And functioning, what does that mean? Basically, are you able to get to work and hold down a job? Are you able to engage in interpersonal personal relationships, friendships, romantic relationships? Can you get involved in leisure activities? Are you able to be part of a community? And sleep? Are you able to get to sleep, eat? Those are kind of basically just your functioning in life.
That's a lot to think about, and I guess to bring this before our panel, when we think about these, what are some of the common triggers that impact youth or the young adults?
So one trigger that I know that I feel like often gets overlooked because we don't really want to talk about it or acknowledge it is family. And I say that in the sense that oftentimes certain things you would never let your friend say. If like your friend walked up to you and talked to you a certain way, or a stranger did, you would never let them speak to you like that. But we let our family talk to us, walk to us, speak to us however they wish, all in the name of family, or blood is thicker than water. But in reality, respect is respect. And I feel like one part of acknowledging your mental health is acknowledging that you need those boundaries, that you need that respect, even if it is from your family, be it a parent, an aunt, a grandparent, a sibling. If you wouldn't let somebody else do it to you, why would you let your family do it to you just because they're family? Because if they love you, they wouldn't do that to you.
Boundaries are important. Does anybody else have any
That
thoughts?
touches on something that I see a lot, I guess, with people as they transition from adolescence to adulthood. That's a really, I guess, maybe rocky time, because for years your family has gotten used to a certain, let's say, the table being set a certain way. And once you start to move into adulthood, it really disrupts a lot of the roles and the dynamics that you play in your family and the way they relate to you. And they essentially have to get to know you as the fundamentally new and different person. A lot of times that happens when you come home from college, if you're kind of between finishing college and starting off on life, with your first job, moving out. There's a huge reset that happens. Because when you left, you were one person, and a lot of times you came back a very different person. So learning how to change those relationships, learning that when you try to set boundaries, when you speak your mind, when you give constructive criticism about something you experience with your parents or your family, reframing that from that's disrespectful to we're not in this kind of disrespect function anymore. Now we're adults communicating, and we have a relationship, and we have to figure that out, and how to hear each other and validate each other. So it's a huge change.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other triggers that they want to share? Yeah.
So one common thing that most of us knows about social media, all the time people start, especially, I guess for me, usually in the mornings when I wake up, I check my phone, I see what other people is doing. It's like I start comparing myself with their lives, which is something that gets me down, because I would like to do certain things that they're doing, but I'm not able to do it. Or in my experience, when I first came to live in this country, my social life was not as active as it is now, and I would see people go outside, and I would be staying at home, and I was like, I wish I could do that, but I can't. So which led me to a low point in my life.
Yes, another thing could be like undiagnosed mental issues. Like, for example, I have ADHD, and I think that a lot of people may have it as well. And yeah, I'm on medication to help me stay focused and get my work done. And I guess people don't really see it as like a mental health kind of problem. They see it as maybe a way to like not take accountability, like, oh, you can't focus because you don't want to, but it could actually be a mental thing. And I think that this generation it's becoming more open than prior generations.
I know
That's courageous of you. Did I cut? Hopefully, I'm not cutting somebody off. I was just gonna say, Alicia, that's courageous of you to share, and just to kind of validate that. Yeah, ADHD is not a weakness in character. It's not laziness, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. And it's heavily underdiagnosed, and it's very common, and it's really common in adults, much more than people would think. I just think by the time you get to adulthood, you've kind of learned how to cope with it and deal with it, and so it's hard to catch.
Thank you.
I know for me personally, I play a lot of video games. So like I try to, and like I play competitively. I don't like to play casual. So if you're trying to like play some games, you don't want to. But I know during like video games, people will start to, it can have a mental effect on you because you get upset. You'll get upset if you do something wrong, or like someone will trash talk you, and you don't like that, and then you try to trash talk back, and then that makes you even more like have more of be angry. You can be angry, then you can get in your feelings and all that stuff. So I think that's another trigger that affects young adults as well.
That's not something that ever existed before, right? Like that kind of goes in that pot with social media, is that now young adults, it's so common to have, I guess especially since the pandemic, a lot of friendships and relationships are happening virtually, whether you're trash talking your friend playing a game, or you're in school together virtually. So it's hard to imagine what that's like. That's definitely something that's different for you all.
So another question that I have is, what are some common misperceptions or stigmas about mental health, particularly in the church?
I think a common stigma for mental health, especially in the church, is that when we express or suffer from the lack of mental health, that it shows a lack in our faith, that we're not trusting the Lord to see us through everything. But really, it just shows that we're human and that we do need to depend on the Lord. But it's important for me to be part of a church and a community that isn't going to condemn me for having certain weaknesses that everybody else has felt in their life. And know that we do have a Lord and we do have a community to lean on, but it's not us rejecting that faith and pushing it away. And another one that has affected me is that a lot of people, especially in older generations, deny that mental illness is a thing. They say that you can choose to feel better, and you're choosing to dwell in the feelings that you have right now. And that is not the case. We don't have control over a lot of these feelings and influences on our life. And to be honest with you, that is Satan's favorite device to attack us and everybody else next to us.
That's
Chloe, that's a great point you've made. There is a temptation to kind of your first comment, take it as a sign of somebody's weakness or a lack of their faith, why they're going through a mental health issue or a mental health struggle. And really, it's like telling that a person who has diabetes or a person who has some sort of heart issue, that the reason why they're going through that is because they have not prayed enough, or they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, be stronger, trust in God, and your heart issue will go away. You won't have strokes anymore. And I think what we would say is, if you have diabetes, if you have a health issue like that, definitely pray, but also get treatment and figure out a way to protect your health and make your health a priority. Look at diet, look at rest, get with a medically trained or a clinical professional, in addition to praying. So I think the same goes with mental health. We're not saying to throw prayer out, or we're not saying to throw the component of trusting and depending on God out. We're simply saying this is a real health issue. Alicia, who was courageous enough to share that she has ADHD, what ADHD is, it's a deficiency in a hormone in our brain called dopamine. And dopamine works in different parts of your brain. Pretty much anything you do that kind of makes you have a good feeling or gives you a good sense of, of pleasure or joy, a lot of that's coming from dopamine. Well, it also affects your ability to focus, organize, and motivate yourself. So it's not somebody making something up in that situation, or if it's, if it's anxiety because another hormone called norepinephrine isn't working properly. That's not a sign that that person isn't spiritual enough. It's a sign that they need to take a different approach with their health. And the best thing we can do is offer support to them. I think we don't know what to do a lot of times. I think we feel like there's got to be a situation or something to blame, because I don't know how to help you if you're depressed. I feel overwhelmed if you tell me you have anxiety, because I don't know what I can do to help. So it's almost like, well, what's at fault? What's to blame? What caused this? Is it your parents' fault? Did they not raise you well enough? Is it your fault? Are you not being spiritual enough? Maybe you didn't come to Wednesday night prayer meeting enough, and maybe that's why you have anxiety. And there's no blame or fault to be assigned. It's the fault of the fact that we live in an imperfect world. And that's the nature of it. We live in a world where we have disease, illness, sickness, there's cancer, there's now coronavirus. That's just the nature of the world we live in. So we don't have to go looking for a place to assign fault. And it's okay to feel intimidated at knowing what to say if somebody says that they're going through something. But really, there's not much you need to say. Focus on listening. You would be shocked at how much a listening ear can mean. And simply saying like, hey, I don't know what to do. I don't know a lot about what you're going through, but I'll listen and let you get off your chest and tell me how you're feeling. And if I give you a listening ear without judgment, you've already done a lot towards helping that person to heal.
So it sounds like more of a listen to understand and less of a listen to respond.
Well said.
I feel like one stigma too is that, like, okay, if you have, let's say, diabetes or a heart disease, most times there's a medication that they give. Most people have the same medication, same exact this, same exact that, same exact route to take it, and it helps. But the thing about mental illness, I feel, is that nobody's mental illness is the same. Yes, we can all have the same mental illness, but nobody's manifests itself in the same way. Like, looking in this church, every single person here has a different life, walked a different path, has different struggles, has different pains. Though we might all have had that same idea, everybody took care of it their own way. Everybody handled it a different way. Everyone had different circumstances that played into it. So I feel like with mental health, so often we all try and put in a box of, you're depressed, this is what I did for my depression, so it's gonna work for your depression. Or you have anxiety, I did this, so it should work for you. But that's not the case, because everybody, everyone's body, everyone's mind is a different mind, a different body. We're all uniquely created, and we all have different ways, different mindsets, different ideas, and telling people that you have this, so you have to do this, and it's gonna solve it because it worked for me, is not gonna always help. And like they said, just listen sometimes, because sometimes if you just listen to me, just listen to my ideas, listen to what's wrong, listen to what I feel like is hurting me, that could just be like one of the biggest resolutions, because not everyone has a listening ear. Not everyone feels comfortable enough to go up to people because of certain circumstances that have made you make yourself into a little box, that have made you put yourself into this, I have to be perfect, or I have to follow this, or have made you self-independent to the point that you don't know how to ask for help. And so I feel like telling people that is just one of the worst things.
Great point.
And I another stigma that I've seen is that mental illness or mental health like having bad mental health is a sign of weakness. I think a lot of people don't correlate mental health to like physical health because they both go hand in hand. If your mental health is not good, then your physical health might not be as good as well. I know an example that happened recently was Simone Biles, and during the Olympics, how she did not want to participate in one of the sets because she said her mental health was bad, and people were saying, "Well, you gotta toughen up. You're trying to win the gold and everything." But it was like, if say she doesn't have confidence in herself that time, and she's about to do the set and do everything, and say something happens, she slips because her confidence wasn't good, she was nervous, she slipped and she broke something or she just paralyzed herself. But you're saying that's like a sign of weakness. I just don't think it's a sign of weakness, and I think it's mainly part because it wasn't talked about back then. Mental health wasn't talked about back then. It was more about the physical health. It was more all about that. That was most important, but they really go both hand in hand.
That's a great point. And we know God's not asking for our strength really anyways. There's never a plan mentioned in the Bible. There's never a plan that God talks about that's dependent on our strength and our power. Everything that's to be done depends on Him, His strength, and His power. So us telling each other, just buck up, just be strong, get through it, we know that's not really what God intends for us. It's to show love, to show compassion, to show understanding, and trusting in God and taking advantage of the resources and the innovations in science that God has given us to help enhance and protect our health.
And in our key verse in Philippians, Jesus tells us that His peace will guard our hearts and minds. So another question is, what other examples or verses addresses mental health in the Bible?
I would talk about 1 Kings chapter 19, and it starts off in 1 Kings chapter 18. This is when Elijah is building the sacrifice to God, and he's asks God to consume the sacrifice. He's basically showing that that Baal is not a real God, and our God is the real God. And so God had consumed the sacrifice, and then in chapter 19, verse 4, I'll read it. Please load. Okay, so chapter 4. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came down and sat under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die. And he said, "It is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my father's." He just went from a real high to a real low. He was just he just proved how good God was, and then the next moment he wanted God to kill him. Well, take his life. And then as he lay and slept under a broom, suddenly an angel touched and said to him to arise and eat. And I think that's really important because sometimes we need to remind ourselves that we need a nap then, and we need to eat something. Because being hangry, when you're really upset, and it's maybe because you didn't eat today. But after he ate, verse 8, so he arose, ate, and drank, and he went in the strength of the food 40 days and 40 nights, as far as Horeb, the mountain of God.
I don't have a Bible verse, but I have an example from the Bible. one of the things that made me realize on the example I'm going to say is that every person in the Bible that helped to spread the word, God did not choose them because they were perfect, but because of those imperfections helped them go through everything and everyone was able to believe in him. Like even the most perfect human in the world, Jesus, he went to a breakdown before he had to go to die on the cross for each one of us. He asked God if there was any chance that burden could be taken off of his shoulders, but at the end of the day, he did it because there was a purpose for that, and that made me realize that. And that made me realize that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. That means that when you're a Christian, yes, you're going to go to some struggles, but that God is going to give us the strength to do what we need to do, have the tools that we need to, and go for whatever we need to go through, because those things are the things that makes us stronger.
So I was trying to remember the verse, but one thing that always like stands out with me in the Bible is that God never like when we think of all the disciples, none of them were perfect. None of them, everyone had their flaws. And one thing that always sticks with me is that God never calls the qualified, he qualifies the called. And wow. I feel like that's something that we really need to look into, because we often think that, oh, you're a Christian, so you got it down packed, you're all set. But in reality, we're imperfect people that are made perfect through God. Every single flaw we have, every single thing that makes us different, every single little tick, little piece of us is perfectly made through him, and to us, we see all the imperfections, but he thinks we're perfect. And if we don't think that, he's going to make us that. He is the one that's going to transform us. So I think so often we try and lean on ourselves and our own understanding and try to make it like our own world, and we got this. But in reality, we cannot do anything without him.
One of the verses that I've carried through my life that my parents we talked about all the time when I was younger is, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me," in Psalms 23:4. And what that did for me was, the world was so big for me when I was young, and even now in certain situations, but it shows that there's not going to be a time when there is no struggle and no trial. There's no guarantee that through this life, even if you choose to walk with the Lord, that there won't be any tests and there won't be any struggles or trials. But when you go through those things, God will be with you through all of it. Like Brenda was saying, there's no guarantee that there won't be a storm or storms will stop to come. But my comfort comes that when the storms do come and the boat is rocky, my safety and my peace will come from walking with Jesus. And now that I'm older, another verse that I like is, "Come to me, all you labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And I'm constantly praying to get from one day to another and 1 week to another and thanking God when I do. And I'm sure we all know the struggles with work and balancing life and the expectations that we put on ourselves and the world puts on us. But when rest comes, it's definitely something to be grateful for, and it's definitely something that we need.
Another example that I have is, you can even look at Moses. Like, okay, so think of this. Imagine you are leading a bunch of people to a place that they never know, they never knew the place, and that's the new place they have to go to. On that trip, complaining, whining, all of that, they want to, make their own calf. Oh, okay. And they want to do all this other stuff. And then when you get to the place, foot in the door, they complain again and say, I don't want this, I want a refund. The amount of stress, the amount of anxiety, the amount of frustration that you have to go to as that person, it's a lot. And you can even see it when he hits the rock with the stick. Like, you could see that frustration because of that incident, he wasn't able to go into the promised land. So you can see, like, there was a lot of people in the Bible that went through, like, a lot. You could see, like, the mental health challenges that they was going through. Like, you can see that they was all imperfect. And that just goes to show you that we as Christians now, we can't view ourselves as perfect people that have to have no problems. Because Moses talked to God, like, face to face. I don't think we ever seen God, so I'm just saying that it's we just can't think that we're like these perfect people.
It's a good, it's been a good discussion, right? Heading up to this point between Chloe, as you talked about, those self-induced pressures, right? And you're talking about the pressures that are from outside, right? We already know we've got these own levels or standards that are placed either by ourselves or somebody else. And that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of stress. Are we ever good enough? Do we ever meet the challenges of who we think we're supposed to be, right? So when we're looking at this and we're looking at all that we have to deal with, what are some of the tools? What are some of the techniques that we can use to manage our mental health?
One of the tools I like to use, well, I guess a couple put together, is a self-assessment mostly. Just to think about what I'm used to being capable of, what my normal is, and what I'm lacking in at the moment. And that self-assessment allows you to know what you need. Like Alicia said, make sure you're not hangry. Maybe go eat something, take a nap. And then treat yourself kindly. There are lots of tools that we can use to not suppress the feelings that we have, but to distance ourselves, take ourselves away, and maybe put ourselves in a better light. Go take a walk, get some sunshine, cook something that you really like to eat, you know what I mean? Anything that can make you feel better and put yourself in a more positive place.
Yeah, Brenda.
So something that relates with what you said is that one of the things that have helped me personally is take space, take a moment of silence, because I was at a point in my life that I felt that I was really going really low. And, I think I'm not the only one who relates to this. Like, most of us, our lives are moving fast. We are always doing something. We always have a place to be or something to do. And you don't have to take an hour or two for that. Even with just 10 or 15 minutes, just sit down. If you want to do it outside, do it outside. If you want to do it at home, do it at home. But just take a moment to breathe, to comprehend what you are going through, and to be able to listen to God, because sometimes we talk so much that we don't take time to listen. And listen to what God is trying to say to us to help us go through. It's something that it really helped me a lot.
One thing I would like to say is maybe find your passion, find something that you really like to do. Maybe it's running, because running is really good for your health. Like when you go outside under the sunshine, like, you feel really good. Like, your body feels good. But, find a passion, so when you can start feeling yourself, going low, you can just do something that makes you happy. Maybe not something on your phone, because that's what I was like, let me go watch a show, and then I'll spend the entire day just binge watching that. But maybe, I used to like to draw or make clothes. I think I'm going to try to do that again, because it really made me feel good.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
I think one common thing that everyone said, correct me if I'm wrong, is just like acknowledge it. Acknowledge that you're going through something. Acknowledge that what you are feeling is real, it's relevant, and it is valid. Everything you feel is important to look into and acknowledge, and to take time for yourself, to breathe, to find a passion and do it, to cook yourself your favorite meal, to take time and listen to God and listen to your own mind, and to just know that though everyone else is going through something, don't compare yourself to anybody else's problems. Don't look into other people and be like, well, they're having it worse, so I need to get over it. Like, no, everything you're going through is valid and important and needs to be acknowledged. So, yeah.
Another tool that I use for myself is journaling. I think people underestimate how good journaling is. Because like you said about acknowledging it, it's like with writing it down, it forces you to actually acknowledge what you're going through. Because sometimes you like to hide, like you like to say, oh, I'm fine. You like to harbor it in, or maybe you have a lot of stuff going on and you don't want to put it on someone else. So I say journaling. It has some benefits. It reduces stress and anxiety, and it also helps with controlling your mood. Like even King David wrote, I believe he journaled, because we have the Book of Psalms now. So I think journaling is a good thing, and I think also just taking a walk, because I'm a senior now, so freshman year of college, I already had senioritis, so I was already done with college and everything. So I just took a walk, and it actually helped, because it's just good seeing like God's nature and just hearing the birds chirp and everything. So
That's good. I know for myself, the exercise is important. Getting away from my desk, getting away from what looks like the norm of work, getting outside, fresh air. I don't care if it's raining. Raining helps too sometimes. But when I'm out there exercising, good music too. There's always a song I can go back to. Brother Malcolm, what do you think about some of these tools that they're sharing?
They're all really important. I think I can remember recommending them to various people I've worked with, because everything that you all have stated is really valid, really important. It may not seem like super flashy, like we heard of some of these things before, but they're all really powerful. And I think if you find yourself giving it a chance, acknowledging what you're going through, journaling, doing things that bring you joy, just some of those examples, maybe all of those are kind of things that you have to do to look after your health. And if you put the effort in, I think you'll definitely see that you get a reward from that. The only thing I would add to it is sleep, which I know is it's a complex thing for people, because some people find it hard to sleep, and of course if you are having a mental health challenge, it can be difficult to sleep. So I don't mention it to kind of like stack stress on people, but just to wherever possible turn some focus into your sleep hygiene, how you disconnect from things leading up to sleep, how you protect the time for your sleep. Sleep is one of those things that it's like you can't overestimate the potential impact it can have on your health, your life, even your faith and spirituality. Your average lifespan for a human is about 75 years. And ideally, we are asleep for a third of that time. So that means over your life, that's 25 years of sleep. And you have to ask yourself, what is God doing to us during those 25 years of sleep? We only get 50 years of actually being awake and conscious. So a third of our life, God has taken off the table and said, that needs to be for sleep, because I have something important that's happening to you during that time, and it can't be skipped. And we know enough now to know that sleep affects diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, It affects depression, anxiety. The first half of your sleep cycle is attending to your body's physical needs. The second half of your sleep cycle is attending to your body's emotional needs. That's why in the first half, we're paralyzed. Like your brain will literally paralyze your body in the first half of the sleep cycle because it needs all resources gathered to healing. And that's why in the second half of the sleep cycle is when we dream. Usually we're finding we're dreaming right before we wake up. That's the part where your brain is going through that emotional cleanse. So I don't throw it on people like stress. We don't need anything else to be anxious about. We've got plenty. But I like to bring it up to people because I see it come up so much as an issue for the people that I work with. And it's one of those things, it's free healing. You don't have to pay for it. It's available to us every day. So it's really a gift.
That's awesome.
One more thing. Louis, I like that you mentioned journaling and that you were talking about our emotional needs, Mr. Malcolm, because one of our greatest emotional needs that we often suppress and don't talk about and don't allow out of ourselves and other people is just to cry. Sometimes you have to just be vulnerable to yourself and be open with yourself about what's really going on and what you're feeling and allow those feelings to flow through you and escape, because you can't get any relief from holding it in and trying to cover it up. It's just going to get worse and worse. Sometimes you just have to find your space, close the door, and allow yourself to cry. And when we do cry, I want to remind you that God says we never cry alone. You might not see anybody else around you, but He feels you and He hears you, and He knows what your concerns and your thoughts and your feelings are. So just allow yourself to cry if you need to.
I appreciate that. Before we close, for the panel, and of course, Brother Malcolm, as we're going forward, but what is your biggest takeaway, if you have one that you've taken from this discussion? What's your biggest takeaway that you would offer the church, or maybe if you could look back years from now and you can offer it back to yourself? What's the biggest takeaway you've gotten from this?
So for me, is that just because you're going through a mental health challenge doesn't make you any less a child of God. That for the example that I said earlier about Jesus is that just because you're a Christian doesn't make you perfect. So God is going to help you go through whatever you need to go through, and it's going to give you the happiness and the joy and the tools you're going to need to move forward. And as a church and as a community that we should be, and as a family through Christ that we should be, and that we are, mental health should not be a dirty word at church. If you know that someone is going through a mental health crisis or an issue, as a family we should help each other and not just come to church to see who dresses better or who are you gonna just chill with. Like, it should be something that we all gather together and help each other out, because we're supposed to be a family and we are supposed to grow together.
Amen.
I would say, once again, to find something you're passionate about to do when you're feeling low, and to remember to exercise and try to be someone that other people can come to you to listen. So just be a good listener, and yes, that's about it.
I would say just to remember that you're not the only one. Each person has had their own struggles and mental health challenges, and you're not alone in them. And it's definitely important to consider that for yourself to give you that strength, and also to consider that in other people so that you can allow them the room and the time that they need to heal also.
I would say that acknowledging your mental health is one of the strongest things you can do. Your mental health is not a weakness. Let's say it's a doorway for God to come in and to heal the broken. It allows you to be vulnerable enough and humble yourself enough to realize that you can't do this on your own, that we are really nothing without God. When you go ahead and try and do your own thing like the prodigal son, everything's going to go haywire. You're going to go down and spiral, and you're going to have to come right back. So I feel like acknowledging it enough to know that I'm broken and I need help, and I know that I can get my help from you, is one of the biggest things we can do.
Yeah, I also think it's just, just take a day off. If you're going through something, just take a day off, just breathe, do something that you like to do. I know, and then what everybody has said is like sometimes when people go through something, they just want someone so they can talk to about it, and just be there to listen. Like, don't try to give them solutions. Even though you're trying to help out, sometimes you just got to listen. And I had to learn this through many times, so I think it's just best to just listen.
My takeaway from all this is that this church is richly blessed in the young people you have who are invested and leading out. I'm just sitting here listening to the things they've been saying, and while the wisdom they've accumulated, it wasn't anywhere near my radar when I was their age. So I hope you all know you're fortunate. You've got good young people here.
I appreciate it. Brother Malcolm, and appreciate the panel. How about the panel? Right? Absolutely. Our future leaders are right here. I mean, they're leading right now, so it's not even the future. It's right now. And Brother Malcolm, we appreciate time. And before we do go, any information for our church, for our members, for each one of us, for those that might casually come across our website online when it comes to this discussion, is there anything that you would could point us to, a direction to say, hey, for more help?
Yeah, if you're looking for information, I mean, it's really we're rich with information. Maybe the challenge is turning it into wisdom nowadays, but we're rich with information. One resource that I found, and I've been hearing about it for years, and maybe it's popping in my mind again, is there's a book called Creation Health, and there's a website attached to it, and this is actually a book sponsored and written by Adventist authors and connected to an Adventist medical center down in Florida, and they spell out this acronym for creation, like choice, rest, environment, activity, and I'm probably blanking out on some of the others, but there's like interpersonal relationships, outlook, nutrition, and really it just kind of lists out a great balanced approach for life. And the T is trusting in God. And so I really feel like that's kind of all we're talking about here, is that mental health just falls within that full spectrum of how do you have a balanced life. You need community. And you're blessed to have that at church. You need good relationships. You need to think about nutrition, activity. So I would tell people, check that book out. It's a great book, and of course, yeah, there's tons of information out there. But I do thank you all for having me, and I appreciate that you all have elevated this to a level of importance to give a whole Sabbath towards it, and to give a voice to your young people to talk about the challenges they face and how they deal with them and overcome them. So this is excellent.
Amen. Amen. Brother Malcolm, thank you so much. Thank you to the church for listening. We don't have to be alone. We don't have to go through this alone. There are resources, and don't run away from the things that you're dealing with. Seek help, and if you're the one who's there that somebody's looking to for help, then be that listening ear. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brother Malcolm. Thank you, panel.